If you have anything above a room temperature IQ, it may not. The Victorian government has announced the share hire e-scooter will be permanently legalised across the state following something it calls a trial. It will come into effect in October along with tougher e-scooter rules and penalties for those caught doing the wrong thing. I think that all depends on the police's willingness to enforce the law, doesn't it? Anyway, I'll ask my next guest that. According to the community problem-solving app Snap, Send, Solve, Victoria alone has seen a 145.6% increase in e-scooter reports in 2024, while Australia has had a 186% spike in reports. And we'll get my next guest to define what those reports are. Well, I'll tell you now, actually. They highlight issues such as illegal parking on footpaths, dumping on the streets, improper gear usage and other safety concerns. Despite those increases in reports, that clearly didn't sway whoever it was who made the decision to legalise them. Danny Gorog is Snap, Send, Solve founder and CEO. He joins me now. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm very well. So who had sign-off on this despite, as you've said... Oh, okay, let's go through it again. Illegal parking on footpaths, dumping on the streets, improper gear usage, other safety concerns. Yep. The government looks at that and goes, no, we'll go ahead and greenlight them.
I'm not going to speculate on who or how these decisions get made, but what I can tell you from the data we get from Snaps and Solve and our users is that they are causing quite a lot of grief around the suburbs and the cities. And it's, this has been a constant issue. We were talking about this last year.
Yeah.
And what I did hear, which was encouraging, was that, Lime and Neuron, who are operating in this state, are going to put in some additional measures to try to fix some of the issues. Now, the most common thing we see is bikes and scooters just strewn along footpaths, blocking pedestrian access. And what I've heard is that they're going to make it harder harder or more specific areas for where you can kind of park a scooter. You can't just leave it anywhere, which is still the case today. You can't leave it anywhere, but you're going to need to go to specific geo-locked zones. So that's encouraging. But like with all this stuff, including abandoned trolleys, like people have a way of leaving them wherever they feel like it. And I guess as a society, we just agree that that's something we're happy to put up with in exchange for the convenience of the scooters.
Was the trial a farce? Was the outcome of the trial known from the minute it started? Donald Trump or Joseph Stalin would be experts in both of those. But was it simply going through the motions?
Well, the cynic in me would probably say that was the case. I do actually use the scooters. Occasionally we have our office in Richmond, and it is a really convenient way to get around. I can just jump on the path along the Yarra. Yep. There are now bike paths all through the city, so it is actually a pretty convenient way to get around. There's certainly this movement to encourage people to take public transport and to not drive. So that all plays into the right themes, I think. Was it a foregone conclusion that when the trial started they would get approval? My guess is probably yes, but yep. These things are learning. It does sound like I will say that, like back on what I said, there has been some learning. I think there's certainly been some frustration. I think the government has put some new restrictions on how these schemes need to operate.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully that those things coming into effect, being put in place, and us seeing actually a reduction in the numbers. But actually what we're seeing at the moment is these things are becoming more difficult. And my suspicion is, what I also heard was, this is going to expand to different councils. So at the moment it only really operates in a few different council areas within Melbourne. It's going to expand out to other council areas. So I suspect that means there are going to be more of these scooters and more of the bikes, and actually the issues are going to increase, and it's going to continue to be a major issue.
133693, 133693, as Danny Gorog, Snap, Send and Solve founder and CEO, has told us they are going to be a permanent fact of life. So your thoughts on e-scooters, 133693. You mentioned an increase in reports and improper gear usage, illegal parking, all the rest of them. If you had to rank them, what is the commonest complaint about e-scooters, about how they're used or what people do with them?
It's blocking. It's improperly parking and blocking footpaths. So
Yep.
you see like a series of 3 or 4 bikes that are just kind of pushed over, and literally you've got to step around them. In some cases, you need to step onto the road, which is okay if you're able-bodied, but obviously if you're disabled, that's very hard to do. And the other thing that's interesting in our data. 55% of the snaps that we received were for Lime and not Neuron. And so I haven't looked into it, but I just sort of wonder whether those two different companies have different approaches in, parking and the safety issues around their scooters. So, or whether Lime just has, double the number of scooters that Neuron has, for example. I don't know the answer to that, but our data suggests that Lime is the particular issue at the moment.
Yep.
And I don't know how that's going to change as the rollout continues.
All right. Last question then. Going forward, like I say, they're a fact of life now. Does that mean that we'll see legal action either against the company itself or more prosecutions of the driver, or both, for improper use of these things?
Well, my best guess is I doubt it. I mean, I think the police are pretty busy doing lots of other things. This is probably pretty low on their list of things that they need to, resolve.
Yeah.
Look, I hope that the public, take this more responsibly. I'm sure if you talk to the doctors in the emergency rooms, there are a lot of people who are getting injured on these scooters because, they can't find helmets, or they're not riding properly, or they're riding in the wrong spot. So, look, this is just something that I think we have to contend with as society, moves on. I think this is one of these things we have to contend with, and they are here to stay. So we should insist that they do everything they can to make them safe and make riders more responsible when they're using them.
He founded Andy Helm's Snap Send Solve. He's Danny Gorog. Thanks for your time, Danny.
Thanks a lot.